Well, by this time, with each day that passes, we are one day closer to the college football season. 10 days left until the start of the 2010 college football season. 10 days left until the Big 12 starts another year in college football. 8 days if you're an Iowa State fan. They play on Thursday. But we are getting very close to that time. It's a new season, and I am excited for it. Welcome back to the latest episode of Conference ChatterTV. My name is Eric Sorrentino. I'm the KUSports.com Big 12 blogger, and I'm back for another year. It was a really exciting year last year. The purpose of this YouTube video last year and this year as well was to predict every game that happened in the Big 12. I'll come on here again, just like last year, before each weekend and predict the games that happen in the Big 12 and try to dissect them a little bit along the way. And then afterwards, I'll come back for some reflection as well after the weekend, after the games play out. So this year, I have one thing in mind, and that is to top my 2009 total. I'll see if I can do it. It's going to be a little tough. I had a pretty decent year last year. It was the first year I tried to pick these games in the Big 12, but I went 81 and 24 last year, picking at a 77.1% accuracy rate. I don't know. I think I can beat it. I have a little bit more experience now in covering the Big 12. Maybe another year of experience in the books. Maybe I can top that record. Who knows? We'll see. But next week I'll come on and have a preview episode of every game going on in the Big 12 before Week 1. So be sure to check that out next week before the games start. For now, I'll just go ahead and give you a short preview of my take of the Big 12 for 2010. And where I see each team in the standings here. I will start with the North. I'm definitely going with Nebraska to win this division, repeat as Big 12 North champions, just like last year. They certainly have the most talented squad. Without a question, they have the best defense in the Big 12 North, arguably in the Big 12. But their defense is really strong. They lost Ndamukong Suh, which certainly is a big hit. But they still return a lot. Let's be honest. They return Jared Crick, who's poised to have another. I guess he had a breakout campaign last year, but I look for him to crack that double-digit sack total in 2010 and wreak havoc on those defenses, on those offensive lines. Maybe not quite as much as Ndamukong Suh. I mean, that guy was a freak of nature and kind of a once-in-a-generation type of talent. But Jared Crick is a very talented player, and I think he'll lead that defense. I don't think the defense will be a problem in Lincoln. The offense has to improve if Nebraska wants to play in a BCS bowl game, which I think would be the goal in Lincoln this year, is to play in a BCS bowl game and potentially play for the BCS championship. Bo Pelini has set the bar very high in Lincoln, and it's probably going to be up to the offense to see if they can take that next step. They have not named a starter yet. Zach Lee, I would say, is the front runner at this point. But you have a lot of returning pieces around. If Zach Lee is going to make that start in Lincoln, you have Roy Halou Jr., the running back, who's back. You have Niles Paul, the wide receiver, and I believe they returned 4 or 5 starters on the offensive line. The line suffered some injuries, I believe, but I think those were mostly backups, and so the line should be another strength for Nebraska. And I see the Huskers winning the North. I think if there's anybody that's going to give Nebraska a run, it's going to be Missouri, who I picked second in the North. But after Nebraska and Missouri, I see a wide gap in terms of who can challenge in the North. I don't really think anybody has a chance to win the North, quite honestly, this year, aside from Nebraska or Missouri. So I'll go with Missouri second. Blaine Gabbert, very solid quarterback. He's back for his junior campaign, and he loses Denario Alexander, certainly a big loss. Alexander was actually just picked up by the Rams last week. I saw that, and I was happy for that, actually. I'm really curious to see if Alexander can make it in the NFL. He, had an injury-prone career, but at times was dominant, so I'm curious to see if he can make it in the NFL. But, Derek Washington returns from Missouri, the running back. He's a very talented back who was also hurt by injuries, but reportedly is back to full strength. And it's kind of going to be up to guys like Jarrell Jackson and Wes Kemp to see at the wide receiver position to take over for Alexander and to see if Missouri can keep that explosive offense going in Columbia. After that, again, I think it's a big drop in the North. I'm going with Kansas as third in the North. I think the Jayhawks have a rather favorable schedule, which will enable them perhaps to win more games than they did last year. I mean, they had a more talented team last year. There's no doubt about it. But, no Texas, no Oklahoma, no Texas Tech on the schedule this year. Their toughest South opponent this year is going to be Texas A&M, and the Jayhawks get A&M at home. So I think Kansas has a chance, to make a bowl game, maybe 6 wins. 7 wins would be a really good year, but I think 6 wins is realistic. I have Kansas State 4th, Colorado 5th, and Iowa State 6th. I think the Cyclones, I mean, they're a good team this year. They have a lot of returning pieces like Austin Arnaud and Alexander Robinson, but they have a murderer schedule. I mean, OU, Texas, and Texas Tech all appear, and it's going to be tough for the Cyclones to make a move in the North with a schedule that sets up like that. So that's what I have going on in the North. In the South, quickly, I have Oklahoma winning the South this year. Had Texas winning it last year, but I'm going to go back to the Sooners this year in 2010. I think they return just a little bit more experience than Texas does. Landry Jones, a little bit more experience than Garrett Gilbert, despite the fact that Gilbert had, as good of an experience as you can in the BCS championship game. I think Landry Jones, I mean, he's had some more time to be seasoned. He's played in more games. He's started more games. And I think that'll really pay off for OU in 2010. You have DeMarco Murray back, the running back. You have Ryan Broyles, easily the best wide receiver in the Big 12 this year. And I think OU's defense is the best in the South. They're pretty much deep at every position over there in Norman, as they are in Austin as well, to be honest. But I think OU has just a little bit more experience returning in 2010. And when you take a look at Texas, I'm taking Texas to finish second in the South. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who's going to, finish second in the South aside from UT. But, I think the Horns, they have a really front-heavy schedule. I was taking a look at this. They go to Texas Tech, I think, in the 3rd week of the season. They have to go to Lubbock for that one. Then they face OU in Dallas, and then they're at Nebraska as well. And then, that's pretty early in the season. And I think with a little bit of inexperience, they lose a couple of offensive linemen. Garrett Gilbert still kind of has to get in a rhythm. I think with a lot of those games happening early, it might take UT a little bit longer to click on all cylinders than it would in OU. And if that's the case, I think they might slip up on one of those games that happen early on in the schedule. But hey, I mean, UT, 5 of their last 6 games are at home, and they'll probably be favored to win all of those games. So if for some reason Texas, escapes undefeated, it could happen. After Nebraska, 5 of their last 6 games are looking awfully good at home, and who knows, maybe Mac can run the table again in the Big 12. It happened last year, so I just don't think it's going to happen this year. I think they might slip up once or twice, and that's why I have them finishing second in the South. I'm going with A&M third in the South this year. I think the Aggies are just going to be one of the most exciting teams in the nation on offense this year. Gerard Johnson is wonderful. Christian Michael, Cyrus Gray. I mean, they have a very, very explosive offense. They have great skill positions. Jeff Fuller and Tannehill at the wide receiver and Nwachuku. It's going to be a really exciting year in College Station, and I love what A&M is doing. It'll be up to their defense. If they're going to make that step and challenge for a South title, it's going to be up to their defense. And Von Miller and those guys. Von Miller, an excellent player, but he needs some help. It's going to be up to the rest of the Aggies defense to determine if they take that next step and contend for a South title. But I think it is possible this year. I'm going with Tech 4th, Baylor 5th, and Oklahoma State 6th. I think, the Cowboys just they're going to be rebuilding quite a bit this year. They lost a lot of pieces, and so we'll see how that shapes out. But those are my predictions for 2010. Be sure to post your comments on what you think maybe for on how you think the standings will turn out in the Big 12 this year. It's going to be another exciting year as always. 3 teams ranked in the top 10 of the AP poll with Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas. So it's going to be another exciting year with potential for the Big 12 to represent again in the BCS championship game, just like the last couple of years. So I'll be back next week to preview week 1 of the college football season in the Big 12. Until then, I'm Eric Sorrentino. I am signing off, and I appreciate you guys checking out the latest episode and the first episode of the 2010 season of Conference ChatterTV. Take care. We'll talk to you next week.